Hello my friends, this is Dwight from Forest Glory 700 coming back at you with another video. And in this video I have to acknowledge that Canada is no longer a free society. That's right, I've started to slowly but surely figure out that Canada is the Canadian Communist Party. It's basically a parallel to the Chinese Communist Party, very much so. We're living in a communist society where free thought, free expression, the freedom to move freely in Canada is no longer free. We are restricted now. And going out into the community in a free society was once a beautiful thing because you could go out and enjoy yourself and do what you had to do in a free society, and you weren't being molested and you weren't being interrogated by the government or by government agencies. You're free to do as you pleased in a free society. But now, because of COVID-19, we're living under a Canadian Communist Party regime, which means we don't have freedoms anymore. So, for example, I went to the mall with my daughter today. We went to Fairview Mall, and that's a mall in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Anyways, we went to the mall and we went to one of the main entrances, and immediately we had a problem. The problem was we couldn't get into the mall because the doors were locked from the outside, so you couldn't get in. So I saw people inside the mall, and eventually there was a staff person. I don't know if she worked directly for the mall or she was an employee of one of the stores in the mall, but either way, she came forward, she opened the door, and she allowed my daughter, myself, and a few other people that were standing outside for about maybe 15 seconds or so, and we were allowed in. Within about 30 seconds of me entering the mall, I was accosted, I was assaulted, I was attacked by a COVID-19 cult member. Now you're asking me, well, how do you know it was a COVID-19 cult member? Well, it was evident because all COVID-19 cult members, they all wear masks, right? They all wear masks. So you can't hear a damn thing they're saying, and all you can see is their beady little eyes. So immediately, being a COVID cult member, this guy made it known to me that in order for you to be in this mall, sir, you're required to wear a mask. It's mandatory, you gotta wear a mask. So I had a quick rebut, and I simply said to him, sir, I don't believe in masks. I don't believe in them, sir. I believe they exist, but they're not for me. So I proceeded to walk, and as I'm walking, I hear him going like this, and I completely ignored him, and my daughter and I continued to enter the mall. And again, the purpose of us entering the mall was simply to go for a walk. It was way too hot outside, but right now, Toronto, we're experiencing a heat wave. So it made sense for us, if we're going to go get some physical activity or exercise, to go into an indoor venue like a mall and just walk around a few times just to get some exercise and hopefully burn a few calories. So this was the first time I've been in this mall ever since this whole event, this so-called pandemic has come into place since the March of this year, March of 2020. So I'm noticing a lot of markers on the floor. So they have arrows directing you. This is on this side of the mall, you can walk in this direction. On that side of the mall, you can walk in that direction. So most people were complying, with the exception of me, of course, because I just got to be a rebel. So I'm like, okay, I'm walking in the opposite direction of the arrow, and so I did. And again, there was about 99% of the people that were in the mall were all wearing masks. So they're all covered. All you could see was their beady little eyes staring at you. And of course, there were some people that were wearing the mask below their nose or below their chin. So it kind of defeated the purpose of them wearing the mask to begin with. So if you're going to wear the mask, be committed to wearing it or don't wear it at all. That's basically how I see it. If you're going to wear the mask, commit to being a 100% COVID-19 cult member, or don't wear it at all. Because if you're wearing it below your nose, if you're wearing it below your chin, well, now you're under attack by the particles of COVID-19, the virus itself. You're being inundated, you're being assaulted and attacked continuously by this invisible virus. So anyways, we're walking, and I'm walking in the opposite direction of the arrows and so forth. I see mall security, they're not saying anything to me. I see some people glaring at me and kind of probably wondering why I'm not wearing a mask. And, you know, I kind of just smiled towards them and just kind of waved and just kept doing my thing. But you knew that eyes were on you, without a doubt. So anyways, we walked around a bit. My daughter, she wanted to go into a particular store. My daughter's 10 years old. So she went into a particular store, and all the stores, I think, just like the mall, it's mandatory. It's mandatory that you, as a sign of your enslavement, that you put on a face mask and that you're muzzled, because you don't have free speech. You can't speak freely. You can't. Canada is no longer Canada. It's a communist party now. So you don't have the freedom to speak your mind, especially if you wear the mask. The mask is a sign of your compliance. It's a sign of your enslavement to the system. So my daughter goes into one of the stores, and I stayed outside the store because I wasn't interested in going into the store. It was a girly store. I just didn't want to go there, and I figured I'd just let her go. So she went in, and about 10 seconds later, maybe 15 seconds later, she came back out. And she said to me, well, the staff person had explained to me that I can't enter the store without a mask. So I immediately went into the store, and I said to the staff person, the frontline staff person, I said, look, we have a medical exemption. My daughter's allowed to be in the store. She's allowed to be in this mall. And, which makes sense because you don't know what the person's condition is. You don't know whether they have a medical situation or condition that prevents them from actually wearing the mask. So as soon as I said to her, my daughter has a medical exemption, she immediately just looked at me and said, okay, fine, thank you. Thanks for letting me know that. And then my daughter proceeded to walk around the store and to look at whatever she wanted to look at. And then she left, and then we went to the food court. Now, here's the interesting thing. Now, we went to the food court, and there was a considerable amount of people at the food court. But guess what they were doing? They were actually eating their meal, what they purchased, in the food court. And in order to do so, in order to eat or to drink, they had to actually remove their face mask in a public square. This is inside the mall itself. Why are they doing that? Again, they're potentially spreading the virus, because unless the virus knows, for example, the general for the virus says, halt, fellow viruses, halt, stop in your tracks. These individuals are eating, they're drinking, so we must cease and desist from our attack on the human body. We gotta stop, we gotta wait. Now, once they apply the mask over their nose and their mouth, then we'll begin with the assault again. We'll attack the human body. I mean, this stuff is absolutely ridiculous. It makes no sense. If we're surrounded and anyone is a potential carrier, as it were, of this deadly virus that's killing everyone left, right, and center, then the responsible thing for these people to do, if they're really concerned about their own personal health, well-being, and safety, and that of others in the community, when they make their purchases in the food court, they should not be eating in the food court. They should be taking that food to go. They should not be stopping, purchasing, and then having a seat or standing wherever they may be and eating their meals. It doesn't make any sense, because if the virus is all around us and anyone is potentially a carrier of this deadly pandemic, then you're exposing people unnecessarily because you're being selfish. Why? Because you're actually eating and drinking in a public area where you're exposing others to the dangers of a potential virus that you yourself might be carrying. And the virus, it doesn't have a personality, I would imagine. It doesn't care whether or not you're eating or not. It's all around you. So you should be eating in your home. So again, this shows the hypocrisy of all of what's going on in our community, right? If it's as serious as people believe it is, then you have a responsibility to take that food home in the privacy of your home, make sure that your house is isolated, that it's quarantined, and that you can go on and enjoy your meal. I mean, this is the sort of nonsense that we're dealing with in Canada. And it's really unfortunate, it's really sad to see fellow Canadians buying into this lie, because it is an absolute lie. There's information available online, credible information, to expose this particular pandemic as being an absolute lie. We're not in a pandemic situation, none whatsoever. The numbers that they're creating, that they're allegedly saying as a result of COVID-19, it's not. It's anything but that. But when you're constantly programmed, you're constantly watching the mainstream media, mass media, corporate media, those that are filling your minds with that narrative, that is all you can see. And I know that fellow Canadians and people around the world, they're well-meaning, but you gotta you gotta do some thinking here. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I'll be the first to admit it. But you know what? I'm looking pretty damn smart in this particular day and age of COVID-19 pandemic, because the evidence does not support that we're living in a crisis situation that's related to the flu, the pandemic, the Spanish flu of 1920 or 1918. We're not living in that time. And even those circumstances were completely unrelated to what we've been told by our historians. It was more of an environmental factor than anything else. But having said that, we need to wake up, but most people are not going to wake up. It's like I've said in a previous video. People don't have eyes to see, they don't have ears to hear with, nor do they have a mouth to speak with, because they're being muzzled by wearing a face mask. They don't have a voice. So the system, which is really introducing the system of the beast, the New World Order, centralized government, in other words, you and I don't have the freedoms that we once have. That's all being taken away. It's all being stripped away. And that we're being forced in this draconian, this totalitarian system where you and I no longer have freedoms. It's the collective that matters. It's not the individual. And that's how you have communist and socialist types of governments. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And the fact that Canadians and citizens of other countries and other parts of the world are compliant to this, we're losing our freedoms. We're losing them now. We don't even have that, right? I'm being interrogated when I enter the mall. I'm being imposed upon to become a COVID-19 cult member. I'm not going to be a COVID-19 cult member. I do not consent to wearing a mask. I will not consent to the mandatory vaccines that they will be presenting to us. And of course, the second wave is coming in September, October, November of 2020. They've already programmed us for this. This is predictive programming. They programmed us to let us know that it's coming. And then according to Bill Gates, watch the video if you haven't seen it, this second wave is going to be far worse than the first wave. Now, how does Bill Gates know this? I'll tell you how he knows. Because he and those that run this system are all behind it. It's a complete scam. And it's being implemented to introduce the New World Order, the system of the beast, on an international scale. That's what we're facing, people. And most people, unfortunately, you got to have ears to hear and eyes to see. And you also have to have a mouth to speak. And most Canadians and most citizens of countries in other parts of the world, they clearly don't have that. But I've watched a number of videos from people that are doing their research, or doing their homework. They're journalists, people that are in the medical field, people that are just investigating for themselves and saying, wait a second, none of this stuff adds up. And we need to come together as a community, but I recognize and I realize that I'm among the minority. I'm a minority within a minority. And that minority, we're not going to have a voice to speak, because the system that we're a part of, it's all encompassing. Just like the movie The Matrix, you can't escape it. It's everywhere. And so I'm hoping that Canadians across the globe, across the plane, we don't live on a globe, I just have to throw that in as a side piece. But anyways, Canadians have to wake up, but the reality is that most Canadians will not wake up. They will surrender their freedoms for safety and alleged security. Anyways, this is Dwight from For His Glory saying Canada is no longer a free society. Canada has now become the Canadian Communist Party. And it doesn't matter who's in power, because they're all going to submit to this tyrannical system that we're now all a part of. There is no sovereign nation anymore. Sovereignty doesn't exist. All nations are being run by the powers that be. And when it's all said and done, we'll all be under one centralized government, the United Nations, a one world government, the system of the beast. And the days ahead are looking very disturbing, to say the least. Anyways, do your homework, be diligent. You may think I'm ranting and raving, but I know I'm speaking the truth.